So if I'm too loud, please stop me. Right, so thanks for coming to my talk. My name is Arthur. I work at the Post, Washington Post. As you can see, the title is somewhat about the election. That's about half the talk. It's going to be very politically neutral, or I'll try to be as politically neutral as I can. So let's start. So as I said, I work at the Washington Post. I'm one of the lead developers there. In my free time, I teach. I teach at Beta Moore in Baltimore and General Assembly in DC. And I contribute to a Reddit app known as Narwhal. My personal passion is open source. I've done a ton of open source development. A few of my bigger libraries are listed down there. And I'm active on both Twitter and GitHub. My name's Art Sabintsev on there. So any talk about Washington Post can't really get started, at least in the last couple of years, without mentioning Jeff Bezos, as he recently purchased our company. So he purchased the Post in 2013, and since then everything has changed. And just a footnote, I'll refer to Jeff Bezos as Jeff or Bezos throughout the talk. I've never personally met him, but I could essentially retitle this talk as how Jeff Bezos has changed my life. Massive side effects have happened. So a couple things that have changed is we've expanded from being a local and political news company to a national international news company. One of the biggest things that's come out of this is this codename project called Project Rainbow, which ended up being the public name for the project, which was a mobile-first national news application that it has turned into a white label news application. We are white labeling this application that we've released that's making a ton of money for us to smaller news publishers. We are also using it as a way to test shorter news articles, more modern topics, and in general, we're just doing a lot more with mobile UX in this specific application. It's not your typical Washington Post or typical news app. So if you search for the Washington Post in the App Store, it's the one with the blue icon. Other stuff that we've done is we've done a lot more with social media. For media as a company, we use Google AMP for accelerated mobile pages, so our search results pop up at the top of Google whenever you search on mobile web. We use Facebook Instant. We're big fans of Apple News. We're not afraid of cannibalization, so we're essentially jumping into every vehicle that is available for us. On the other side is our company has grown from 15 iOS and Android engineers to about 30, a mixture of full-time contractors, both local and remote, and interns as well. We have a great partnership with Amazon, obviously. We use AWS, but we don't get a discount, and that's probably for tax purposes, as Jeff Bezos personally owns the Washington Post and his other entity, Amazon. He owns Amazon and AWS. So I asked someone at work one day about it, and they essentially said that it's better for him from a tax perspective if we don't get a discount at the Washington Post for using AWS. Other benefits that we have, unfair advantages, is a lot of people still buy the Kindle, and the Project Rainbow app, the blue Washington Post app that I mentioned, is pre-installed on all new Kindles. And if you have Amazon Prime, they give you 6 months for free, which is usually $10 a month. We've also opened up 3 new offices. We have a massive new office in DC, a couple blocks from the White House. We have an office in Manhattan in the Chelsea and Flatiron district, which is the tech hub of New York. And we have an office in Northern Virginia because a lot of the engineers live there. And if you've ever been to DC, it's very crowded in the morning. It takes up to 2 hours to get to work sometimes. So a lot of us can just drive 10 minutes and get to work without having to worry about traffic. And then the most important thing is the experimentation, which is what this whole talk is about. We've done a lot of experimentation at the Post. I'm gonna single out one app specifically, and then at the end I'll talk about 3 others. So let's begin with the story. The whole talk is essentially a long story. So I joined the Post about a year and change ago, and when I signed up to join for them, they essentially told me in my interview, like, we want to hire you, but you're going to be working on this project that we can't tell you anything about. And I'm like, what's this project called? They're like, it's called Project Mu. And you'll get this feeling while I'm talking that we have nothing but code names for projects. I've never been at a company where everything's code named and half the company doesn't even know what you're working on. It's all internal and skunkworks-like. So we went from Project Rainbow to Project Mu, which is this first project. So Project Mu stands for microtransactions. It's going to be it was a project about a new way to sell news. So as the whole world, especially this year in the mobile market, is moving towards subscriptions, we were thinking about moving away from subscriptions to a more microtransaction-like system, where we as a company would build a platform where we would sell you tokens, and these are hypothetical numbers, don't quote them, like 1,000 tokens for $10, and you would, every time you would read an article, either on our platform, it would be either an article that we wrote, or we would be serving for the New York Times, or Boston Herald, or any other newspaper. We would act like an iTunes platform for that. We would charge you, or we would take away 5, 10, 15 tokens per article until you reach zero. So you could kind of read and pay as you go, versus having to pay a $9, $10, $15 subscription every month. Yeah, especially because one of the biggest things that we as a company want to do since Bezos took over is hit younger audiences, and younger audiences are more in debt these days. They don't have enough money. They have things, like BuzzFeed these days that throw out really short articles that get their attention. So we kind of wanted to compete with that, but also still somehow make money. Anyway, so I was really excited to work on this. I've never really built a platform from scratch, especially on this scale. And about a month into my new job, that was last summer, I went into a meeting. They were about to ramp up. They told me ahead of time they were about to ramp up on this project. I showed up for the meeting and they tell me project's canceled. So it's kind of unfortunate because they essentially told me they're hiring me to lead this thing, and this thing disappears. And I'm like, well, do I have to look for another job? So it was really upsetting. But it turned out to be better. So now we have our new project. This is the third project, the coding project, and this is called Project Fun. And this kicked off an entire Skunkworks team at the company. So Project Fun was essentially Jeff Bezos talking to our director of product over a couple weeks about an idea that Bezos had had. And his idea was he wanted to build a game. And the game had to be around the election. Why? Because we, as the Washington Post, have always been known as the election newspaper. We cover the election ad nauseum. Like it is so much that we do around the election, the conventions, and the primaries that it made the most sense to build a video game. If you were to build a video game, for it to be around the election, and the game would have to get the young adults to read the news. Again, with Project Rainbow and with Project New and with Project Fun, the whole purpose of all these projects is to get away from trying to serve our older clientele, which would be in the 40s and 50s. And those are the people who usually end up reading our news from our metrics. It'd be great to get young adults, so we would survive it. In 20 years, we wouldn't be extinct as a company. So build a game around the election for young adults. And this is the cool part: it does not have to make any money. So imagine you go to work every single day, and you don't have to worry about if adding a gesture, making a button blue or red would reduce your bottom line. We weren't worried about that. They're like, just build something fun. Have your way with it, and don't worry about making money. This is going to be a loss. We're probably going to have a bunch of you guys, engineers, designers, working on this. Just make it fun. Don't worry about making a profit. And this was a really big kicker. It had to be like Flappy Bird. Like, no joke. The game had to be a Flappy Bird clone. And what was annoying about this is that Flappy Bird was a thing Q1 2014, and I'm sitting here at the onset of Q4 2015 about to build a Flappy Bird clone. And going from thinking, oh cool, I'm working for a big company, this is my first corporate gig, I'm going to be building a platform, I'm going to build a video game for kids that's 8-bit about a thing that has 1 million clones in the store already. So myself and a lot of others were really upset about it until we actually started building this project. So I'm going to play the app preview that we have for this, so you get an idea of what the app is, and then we'll dissect it, and then we'll go from there. So that's the basic gist of the game. So it's a little more complex than a traditional Flappy game. You don't just hop through as many an obstacle and try to survive. There's a lot more that went into it. So at the project's onset, no one at the Washington Post on either mobile team, iOS or Android, had any game experience, period. Aside from playing video games, no one had ever built a game, no one had thought of building a game, no one had even touched Sprite Kit or Scene Kit. Because of that, at the beginning, and no one was also a C++ developer. So when deciding to build a game, just like at any other company, we're given a deadline, it had to be out before, or ideally before Thanksgiving, and we would have to build it, and we decided to build it natively. So iOS decided to use Sprite Kit, Yeah, I don't know what the Android team did, but they definitely didn't use a game library, and I think it was to their detriment at the end of the day, because it was much harder to get the game to work the way it needed to. But in general, we spun up on iOS development. I mean on SpriteKit development, and made, we learned there was a really cool API, a set of APIs to work with. And the project itself was just kicked off with an idea. We didn't get any assets, design direction, any of the extra power-ups, quizzes. We had no idea how this game was going to work until October. So on September 15th, we just sat down and just started coding to see if we can, just started learning SpriteKit. We submitted the app a little over 2 months later, the day before Thanksgiving, and then it was in the App Store review process for 3 weeks. And everyone knows it's about 1-2 days now, but I've never had an app spend about 20 days in review. And we thought maybe we were going to be featured, or maybe we were going to get nuked. We weren't going to be allowed to go to the store because we were a satirical political application. We, as a big company, do have connections at Apple, but they said that they have no idea what's going on either, and we were just kind of in the dark until mid-December. So game mechanics, very simple. Choose a presidential candidate, Democratic or Republican, didn't matter. We tried to get as many of them in the game as possible. Get through as many obstacles without dying. That's traditionally how Flappy Bird worked. We also increased the difficulty. The more obstacles you got through, the faster the game would work. The faster you would fly through the game, but there was a maximum that you could get to around 70 or 80, after 70 or 80 obstacles. Answer as many quiz questions as you can. We reward you for that as well. And if you're interested in the quiz question topic, read the news, or share the news if you want, if you're so inclined to do so. And then get the highest scoring leaderboard as possible. Again, kids, and adults as well, love challenges, and we wanted to make sure we had people compete on the leaderboard. And I can tell you with the type of feedback that we got, people love the leaderboard. People were trying to get higher and higher, and I'll show you some metrics on that in a little bit. The characters were done by a former employer of ours named Chloe. She did it actually for an iOS keyboard extension, and then we repurposed them for this game. We had all three Democratic candidates, and we had 10 of the 17 candidates in there. And we also had a random character, so if you played with everyone just wanted a random character, we would just put that in there for you. So we had 5 different levels. The levels were just aesthetic. There was nothing specific about them. So the DC Day level just had all the various monuments, memorials in the background. We also included our new Washington Post building for fun. That's the gold building in the middle. And the night version was just essentially changing some UI color properties and adding a big moon up there just for fun, just to kind of mix it up a little bit. And then we also added the different convention locations. Like Cleveland, we had the Rock and Roll Music Hall of Fame. For Philadelphia, we had Liberty Bell and Gino's Steakhouse in the background. And for Iowa, which is a swing state, we added corn dogs and Ferris wheels, just because. So as for obstacles, the obstacles are just the big vertical rectangular objects. Obstacles were twofold. They were either a real obstacle for that candidate in the election, or they were just something that something that was relatable to that candidate. And obviously, since Trump was the most outspoken candidate in the entire election process, especially back then, he had the most amount of obstacles we put into the game. So levels themselves were agnostic to the number of to the candidates that you played, but the obstacles were candidate specific. So all the candidates had a base Washington Monument obstacle. The tape recorder was for all Republican candidates as a way to signify that all of them said the mainstream media and media in general is against them. Then Trump began talking about the Mexican-American Wall, so we had 2 iterations of it built into the game. Trump also said that he also had a few obstacles. Trump Plaza closed down on him, so we kind of put that in there as well. So we were making fun of everyone. We were equal opportunity satirists, and that's what we were trying to get across. For Hillary, we had her infamous email server. We had the time in the Department of State. For Bernie Sanders, we had Wall Street and the DNC voter data scandal that happened at the end of last year. Marco Rubio really was big into drinking water when he spoke, so we added water bottles. For Jeb Bush, we had his brother, George W. Bush, as an obstacle. For Chris Christie, it was the bridge. West Point, for Ben Carson, we had West Point since he went there, and we had a golden version of Trump Tower because Trump was an obstacle for him. Carly Fiorina had the HP building because she tanked that company, and Martin O'Malley was the most vanilla character that we had in the entire talk and I'm from Maryland, so he was the mayor of Baltimore and the governor of Maryland, and all we could think for him was to put Domino Sugar Building, which was a staple of the Baltimore skyline. So that's all we really had for him. So the farther, the farther down we went into all the candidates, the harder it became to put these obstacles in place. And this actually led to floating ads. And this is where I think I like to say that we predicted the final results of the primaries last October. So we had 5 floating ads, and if you decided to monetize, you would use this monetization, these as a vehicle. So I don't know if you saw in the previous screenshots, in the background between the clouds and the moons and everything, we had these floating advertisements. The ones to the left are a female and male version of reporters in hot air balloons with microphones. Then we had Trump's slogan, "Make America Great Again," Hillary for America. I think this was before the "I'm with her" became the actual slogan for her. And then we had, which you can't really see here, is kind of like a little zeppelin that has Trump's face that says "America Great Again." The idea that we had was, if we decided to monetize, we would actually use replace these with 8-bit advertisements, and we would charge a premium to have them. We actually had a 7-figure contract in place, but by the time that contract was going to go through, and the amount of resources we had to expend on supporting this app through the summer, it just wasn't worth it. We had a lot of other high-profile projects to do. So even though we weren't going to monetize this app, we had a $1 million+ contract in place, or almost in place, to monetize this little video game. So that would have been cool if it actually went through, but it didn't, and that's fine. So currency, every game needs gold sync or needs something to get, something to acquire, something to strive for. So we had gold coins. So 1 gold coin was worth 1 coin, and then the 2 clusters of 3 and 5 were 3 and 5 coins, and then the diamond was worth 100 coins. And each of them had a certain percentage between 1 and 5% of actually appearing in between obstacles. So the coins you can get while flying through the game and getting them in between obstacles, as I mentioned. You can answer quiz questions, and if you got them correctly, you get 25 points. And when you die, when you hit an obstacle and you crash into the ground, you would get 3 times the amount of obstacles you traverse. So if you went through 10 obstacles successfully and crashed on the 11th, you get 30 points. Now, we added, here's where some of our own Flappy Bird, our own mechanics come in. We wanted people to strive for real high scores, so we didn't want to completely punish death. So if you wanted to get a high score and you have a lot of money, kind of like super packs and stuff, you could pay 5 times the number of obstacles you traverse. So let's say you traverse 10 obstacles, we would charge you 50 points to keep your score of 10 and restart the game again. So the next time you traverse an obstacle, it would be the 11th obstacle instead of the first again. Also, coins were used for quiz lifelines. So you had extra time. We had like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire style lifelines. We had extra time and 50-50. So every question it was multiple choice, had 4 potential answers. Started with 20 seconds, 20 seconds on the clock, and you have 25 points that you get. If you use more time in 50-50, you would have spent your 25 points on narrowing down, giving yourself an extra 10 seconds and narrowing down the number of answers to 2. And if you answered it wrong, well, then you're out 25 points. So even answering quiz questions could have been detrimental to you if you decide not to skip the quiz question. And if you answer the question correctly or incorrectly, we would tell you, and then we would present you with a little button and some sharing icons that allow you to open up the article in Safari WebView. We didn't have enough time to build a native reader or use our internal libraries to generate a native version of the article that you wanted to read, but we at least were able to show you this article. And these quiz questions, they came from an editor that we had wake up every single morning and read the news, the latest news that the Washington Post wrote, and try to create satirical questions for this game. So he would make a few questions every morning. And we ended up at the end with like a bank of like 500, 600, 700 questions inside the game. So we have power-ups too, and these are 3 different videos. I'm going to start from the left one, which is the American flag power-up, and I'll explain what it does after the video. So we have Martin O'Malley. So you get every time you traverse an obstacle, you would get 2 points instead of 1 with an American flag. You're a patriot. That was kind of the thing with that one. And what I haven't mentioned, and this is how why a lot of people play this game, surprisingly, is every time you hit an obstacle and you die, if you had your sound on, you would have some kind of quote that we pulled off C-SPAN that you would say out loud. So we would have Trump say, "Make America Great Again," things like that, in their own voice. And people who hated Trump would essentially play with Trump just to knock him into a wall. people who hated Hillary would do the exact same thing. So we had a lot of people playing the game just to lose, which was also funny. And the only reason we know this is we saw this average scores. We also have people tweeting us saying, this game is awesome, I can kill Trump over and over again. This game is awesome because I hate Bernie, blah, blah, blah. Things like that. It was just nonstop. We got a lot of this going on. The next one is diplomatic immunity, which lets you go through obstacles for 5 seconds. And that was denoted by a golden star. And then the last one, this one was fun because this came out of nowhere. It's an eagle mode. So our designer said, let's put an eagle in there. And the other developer on this project, a guy named Dean, he was just like, let's make the eagle let's get rid of all the obstacles. And for me, I was like, let's make this thing really fun, and like let's make this funny and fun. So 3 of us kind of had 3 random ideas, and we built on it in that order. And this is what the end result looked like. So you would get 10 points automatically. You would fly above all of your obstacles, and you would have awesome music playing. It was literally like, it was probably the second time when I built this in building this game, when I had this idea to speed everything up and just get rid of everything in general. I sat there, I burst out laughing. It was probably like 1 a.m. on a Thursday or something. I was just like, this is amazing. For me, this made the game for me right there. So special characters. On top of power-ups, we had special characters. We also, like I said, needed another gold standard. So we had Obama, Biden, Ben Franklin, who wasn't a president, George Washington, and we had Kanye West, who said he was going to run for president. So each of them came with at least 1 or 2 obstacles. And here's how we did. So Obama had the Health Care Act, Biden had Amtrak. Ben Franklin had a political cartoon he was known for, he was famous for. George Washington we were really cheap on. We just used Washington monuments. We actually took out all the obstacles except the Washington Monument. And then for Kanye West, we had the MTV and Nike obstacles. So there's a little story behind this. We released the Kanye West thing about a week before he went on a tirade saying he's going to start suing everyone. And our legal team came back and said, please remove Kanye ASAP. So we did an expedited review to remove Kanye West. And we actually got a bunch of negative reviews afterwards saying, why did you add Kanye West, which I paid money for, like, not real money, game money for, and then you only to remove him like a week later. People were pissed off about that. I didn't think anyone really noticed, but they noticed it. So. And also, I'm sorry for taking up an expedited review for removing a 8-bit character. So we had to deal with that. Each of these characters cost 20,000 coins, and that was non-trivial to get those amounts. It was like I said, a bigger gold standard, something to strive for. We also have promo codes on social networking, on Twitter specifically. Every so often we would give out a promo code that would give you 100 or 1,000 coins or unlock a character. I think specifically Ben Franklin, just because. And they came in limited quantities, like 50 or 100. 50 or 100 uses, and that was it. We also had non-game aspects. Again, we're a news company, right? So we have to add news somehow. Quizzes with 1 vehicle. One way we did it is just for fun. We added little biographies. So if you had a certain character highlighted in the carousel, and you click any bio or news button, it would automatically pop up a window related to that specific character. So if I have Donald Trump highlighted right now, I click bio, a little satirical bio about him. Click news, I would get the last 50 articles the Washington Post published about Donald Trump. If you read the Washington Post, that's about 4 days worth of content. That's about it. That's how much we write about Donald Trump. And then we had a daily 202 blog, which is something we were pushing last year, which was a blog with 1 politically oriented article. That was a pretty big article for that day, so we just put that in there just for kicks. And there was actually a strategy during this game, which I put together after I had a few conversations with some kids on Twitter. Some like teenagers messaged me saying this game is awesome. Can you add this character? Do that? We had an internal feedback system, which people left comments on as well. We had people leave comments in the App Store reviews. A lot of people and mostly kids were just messaging us saying, we love this, we want this feature and that feature, and if you do this, and I want to get a high score, blah, blah, blah. But the best strategy was as follows. 40,000 coins is what you need, and that takes a long time to get. Purchase and unlock George Washington for 20,000, for half the amount. Why? Is because he only has the Washington Monument, and the Washington Monument was the only obstacle that had a triangular base. Because of that triangular base, it was more forgiving when you got close to an obstacle. If you were trying to go get gold coins or diamonds or power-ups or whatever, it was really, really forgiving in that sense. Because if you got too close, you wouldn't die. And then you can turn off if you turn off quiz questions as well after you have your 40,000 coins, you could just fly through the entire game without being stopped in the middle for 10 seconds to answer a question you didn't want to answer. And actually, I had to fight to put that feature in there because I knew there was going to be a group of players, a subset of players that didn't want to answer any questions after a while. And then you spend your remaining 20,000 points after each death at a certain point. So if you decide like I'm going to go for a high score, when you end up, like, say, dying, if you end up dying and you have a score of 500, to restart with your score, you have to pay 2,500 coins. So 2,500 coins, if you're a good player, you could do that, only dying a few times, you could easily break 1,000. And as you can see, most recently we have a character known as Fawk Republicans with a score of 5,000. This is most recent because the high score I had seen like 3-4 months ago was 2,000. So it's crazy that people were still playing this for as long as they did. And a score of 5,000 would take way more than an hour. So I can't imagine someone sitting and playing this game for an hour. It would make me cry because I played this game so much. And I don't know. I guess some people really are completionists or really high achievers. So good for them. I'm glad they got that much enjoyment out of the game. Marketing. Marketing is important. We have unfair advantages all over the place. We are the typical thing people say for marketing is get the press to publish articles. We are the press. We have our own ad system, which has not yet been blocked by any ad blocker. So we have persistent mobile ads, and when we launched the game, we just had a massive ad campaign that were to fill our empty slots with Floppy Candidate ads. And if you were on iOS, it would pop up in the iOS App Store, and if I was on Android, it would pop up in Google Play. We also, during the primaries, used paid promotional tweets on Twitter. So we were able to target kids essentially between 13 and above, 13 and 24, and in colleges, outside of colleges, to play this game. So the media reception. So I had a vague idea of what this was going to be like. I didn't expect what happened. My vague idea was people were going to be like, oh, they built a Floppy Candidate game, a Flappy Bird game. That was as far as I thought it was going to go. Here's what actually happened. Kotaku, which I think is getting sold today, because Gawker's going down, they had a 5-word review. Y'all late? Come on, watch the post. That's exactly what I expected, so it was no surprise to me. The comments, though, are what really got to me, and they get worse over time. So I'm not going to say the first one out loud because I really don't want that on video, but essentially it's Hillary Clinton and phallic symbols. And the second one is kind of close to my heart because the first line says, the Washington Post just found tutorials on how to make Flappy Bird. I can tell you, honestly, that is exactly what we did. Like I said, none of us knew how to use sprite kits. So the first thing I did, just like any other developer does, is find a tutorial. Ray Wenderlich had a tutorial on Flappy Bird that came out around the same time. And there was a few open source repos I looked at. And all I did for the first tutorial was just install it, replace one head with a Trump head. And I was like, this looks hilarious. And I sent that around. And then from there, we looked at how people did things, started a brand new project. And we just built an entire, brand new app based on the things that we learned from the open source stuff we looked at. So it's pretty honest. I'm going to be honest, we pretty much did look at how other people built video games before we built this ourselves, which I think is normal. Mashable hit the nail on the head of why this game was popular at first sight, which was having disembodied political candidates fly around for various obstacles. So that was smart. But the comments were ridiculous. They were calling us terrorists. They were calling the Washington Post terrorists. They were calling it liberal media, blah, 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 blah. So people got really upset. And I think the reason was people didn't play the game. They just saw Trump's head right on the as the advertisement. They didn't realize Hillary was in the background. And we also had Bernie there, and Cruz and Rubio, and everyone else. And it's very hard to stay neutral in the sense where there's 10 Republican candidates and 3 Democratic ones. It's very hard to balance the news that way. But we tried to do our best. We also had a bunch of positive comments on the App Store. Exactly what we were hoping for. The game is addicting. We love this game. It's a lot of fun. The quiz questions are interesting. I feel like I learned a lot about the election. Absolutely incredible app, 10 out of 10, and so on. I mean, we had a lot of positive reception, which was really nice to hear about a game that none of us were really sure about to begin with. We had a lot of reception. We had CNET wrote an article for us. Neiman Lab, which is a future media journalism organization out of Harvard, wrote a nice piece on us. Product Hunt featured us as a daily hunt. I forgot what they called it. Featured us on their homepage one day. The Daily Dot wrote an article about us. The Washingtonian mentioned us in one of their pieces. I actually was able to find a local news station out in the Midwest somewhere that actually played our game live on local news. And that was kind of cool to see, a random stranger to play our video game on TV. It just kind of blew my mind. And so it was all cool. So we had the press going for us too. And our App Store metrics, decent, I would say. We were featured multiple times on, so in the App Store, I don't know what they're called, but these are these floating banner ads that you have. Let's say this week we have this grouping of apps that we're featuring. So there was one called On the Campaign Trail that was through all of February, like the beginning of the primary season. We were featured in the US, and we were featured again in July on an iPad for some reason. I don't know why they featured our iPhone app on an iPad. They featured that as well. We were new on the front page in the US. We were what's hot in trivia. We were the highest rank that we reached, which was after one of our updates, which was number 36 in games under trivia. We never actually broke the top 100 in games in the U.S., but we did break it in a lot of other countries. We actually got as high as number 4 in some countries in the Far East. So most of our negative comments were due to not the game. The game, we have I'm proud to say, 100% crash-free rate for the last three or four versions. We had perceived bias of quiz questions being too left or liberal leaning, and we also had that a lot of players who love the game played the game so much they ran out of quiz questions. Like I said, we had one guy wake up every morning, read the news from the past 24 hours, and write 4 or 5 questions for a few months straight, and that was his entire morning routine. But with the left liberal leaning stuff, I knew this was going to happen because I'm someone who tries to stay politically neutral, especially when building a game of this sort. And I told our team ahead of time. I said, hey, listen, I think our questions are a little too heavy on the Trump and Cruz bashing. We need to equal it out with the Hillary and Bernie stuff. And when we finally got those reviews, I got a little upset. No one wants negative reviews about something that is totally out of their control, like a server that they didn't build, or graphics that they didn't design. Or if it's UX, then it's on me. If it's game mechanics, it's on me. But if it's quiz questions, it's on the editorial team. So I called the editorial guy out explicitly, and he's like, "Oh, I honestly thought that we were just supposed to bash Trump the entire time." and I said no. I said we're not supposed to bash Trump the entire time. So we went back and he redid those questions, and we stopped seeing those reviews, and he started putting more neutral questions out. So we saved ourselves a little bit. But you can see the number of reviews we have, so you can get an idea of what our actual metrics are. I'll show you in a moment. But before I do, I want to explicitly say that we did everything by the book. We had promoted tweets. We had our own press release. We had our own advertisements. We are a journal company. We had media reception from a bunch of other companies. We built a game. We built a game for young adults that was hit, quote unquote. So we were expecting something in the order of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of downloads. Right? That would be my expectation going in looking at the metrics. Unfortunately, that is not at all what we got, and that was really disheartening because I have always held the belief, especially when I teach some of my classes, is that there's a whole thing that you have to do to build momentum for your app. You constantly have to put money into ads. You constantly have to add new fresh content. You need to hit up bloggers to try to promote your app. There's a lot of different things that you should do. We did everything. We even had unfair advantages. And obviously the only thing is the product itself was a concept that people may have gotten bored of, or had a perceived bias of it being too anti-Republican or Democratic just from looking at screenshots. So I think those are things that worked against us. So on the iOS side, we had 33,000 plus downloads as of last week, and we stopped development in March. On the flip side, when people play the game, love the game. We ran over 3 man-years of time spent playing Floppy Candidate, of which translated to over 2.5 million games played, which is a little crazy. And these aren't the metrics of myself and the rest of the engineering team playing the game or testing it. These are live production metrics. Average session length was 7 minutes, of which a person played for about 14 games, so about 30-second games. A 30-second game essentially is a couple quiz questions and a few obstacles, and then they die. So I think people just played, a few games, got their fix for the news, and then they just left. The average top score was 29, so this was one of my personal goals. I sucked at Flappy Bird, so I wanted to make a game where I could get a score higher than 2. So whenever I got 3 in Flappy Bird, I was really excited because that was really hard for me. So to get an average score of 29 on our game, I thought that was a nice win. Because like I said, as you go farther into the game, you get a higher and higher score. So in this case, the score was exactly where I wanted it to be. So those are our metrics. And this leads me to what this game turned into. So we have this team known as the New Experiences team. It is a mobile-focused, mobile-native, mobile-first team. It's also our Skunk Bricks team. And the team is made up of a lot of people. Our team structure is we have a product lead who talks to Jeff Bezos every couple of weeks. We have a project manager. We have one designer, 2 Android devs, and over time we've grown into 5 iOS devs. We have 3 backend devs, and obviously we have Jeff on the team as well. And one person that's not mentioned here is a former coworker of mine named Stuart, who was at Capital One now, who actually helped build the original. First, he was on the Floppy Candidate game. I just wanted to give him credit for that because he did start the game with us. But anyway, we are this like kind of existent and non-existent team. We work on the main apps as well. Whenever there's a lull or whenever there's a big push, most of us that are pictured here end up getting pushed onto fixing some kind of internal library or adding a new feature onto one of the main apps. And we are just kind of like a floating group of people that when a new project comes into play that is not news focused, we kind of all get together and we start deving on that project. So other projects that we have outside of Floppy Candidate is the Washington Post Live, which is a conference app, Slack-style conference app, which I'll get into in more details in a moment. We have a new app for our HR team called Post Recruit, which is the only app that we have that isn't blue. And we have an update coming for our internal Metro app. So the Washington Post Live is a Slack-style conference app. So we have in our new building, we have a new event center, and in that event center, we host a conference every 2 to 3 weeks, or a 1 or 2 day meetup. And the team wanted a way to have essentially traditional conference information in there. So they wanted to have the schedule, a list of people, the ability to favorite sessions, the ability to export sessions into your calendar, ability to hit up Twitter, to post tweets, switch events, and Wi-Fi password information, all that stuff. So we built all this out, and we've also built it out in a white labeled fashion. And because we built it out this way, we are able to sell it to other clients. So for instance, if next year, 360, if John decides he wants a new app, we can literally give him our code and our backend, and he could put everything in there. Because we have everything built in that actually you guys have, except the feedback feature. Post Recruit was an app that just finished up. It was an intern summer project. I had a couple interns this summer who the HR team wanted to build an app that would expedite the phone screening process. So instead of having to set up 30 minutes with one of our HR representatives, and we have a lot of people trying to join our company, so it's a lot of time they spend on the phone. They wanted to kind of do it, have our candidates do it on their own time, giving them 2 weeks or so to answer specific questions about the position they're applying for. So we asked about 10 or 12 questions, short answer, multiple choice, and short video, and we would just upload it to our backend. So this is a system that's going into play next month, and specifically for our new engineer hires. It also will act as a litmus test because our HR employees were able to get through this UX without any problems. So if our engineers our future potential hires can't get through this process, we can essentially roll them out right away. And the last app that's being worked on is a massive project. It's called DC Riders version 5. It's being worked on by Eric, who's attending here, and a junior dev that we just hired that came out of the school. That's amazing. And they are literally building a really nice futuristic metro app that working closely with Romada, which is our metro authority in the area, to build a app that essentially will pre-plan road trip for you, will tell you when the latest trains are coming, and give you news on what's going on in DC. And this is important because right now in DC we are having a lot of metro issues. We're actually shutting down half our lines for the next year to fix them because we've had a lot of crashes. So we are kind of coinciding the release of this app with what's actually going on in our local community in DC. And again, not a news app, something we have had released, something that is actually actively downloaded 1,000 times a week already, every week, even though we haven't touched the app, version 4 of the app in years. So we figured it'd be a good time to update it now. So this brings us to our technology stack in our team. We have carte blanche. We are essentially told, go build an app, and then essentially Eric and I, and I'm pointing out this here as well, we decide what we want to do. And we don't have to run it by anyone. just say we want to do this, and that's what we end up doing, and we tell the rest of the team how it worked out. So Floppy Candidate was a project we started working on in September of 2015, and it was iOS 9 Swift 2 right out of that. DT Rider we started working on last month with the betas is iOS 10 and Swift 3. Third-party adoption. So we use CocoaPods like many others. We also use Fabric, but we have a very, very special relationship with Fabric. So those are the people that make Crashlytics and TwitterKit and Answers and Beta and all those products. We essentially talk to them every week. We do beta tests for them in our apps. We fix bugs for them in all of our apps. We found and requested features that they've implemented in their SDKs for us. So it's been really nice that we have this relationship with them. We've also written quotes for them as well. So we have this very mutual relationship to make sure that they release the best products, and because we have a vehicle where we can send out to tens of thousands of users right off the bat. We use Fastlane and Jenkins, so we have a bunch of lanes hooked up where if we make a new PR, it automatically runs our testing framework. If we merge it into develop, we use the Git flow branching model. So if we merge into the develop branch instead of the master branch, it automatically pushes the test flight code for us. We use Realm instead of Core Data on all our projects, all our new projects. So we have 4 or 5 projects that use Realm, and we've been using it since the early betas. We've used Taylor for Swift, which is a linting framework, because we were originally going to build our own CI server in Swift server side, but decided against it, so we moved over to the faster Swift lint, which is owned by Realm, and we use Travis CI internally. As for API adoption, we adopted 3Touch right away. As we're a news company, we don't use core location often, so for us it's a new API to work with. We use Handoff, we use Spotlight, and we definitely use a lot of different types of UI tests. So we do everything that modern companies do. We're not involved, even though we're corporate, we have the ability to play around with all the APIs. And we have, on this team specifically, have the ability to make decisions without going through any hoops on what it is that we actually want to do. What also, and this is kind of a personal thing for me, is I like to do open source a lot. Tons of open source, especially in this community. So out of, I needed, in the game that I built, I needed a library that would sync end-user defaults over iCloud. In case a user decided to install and uninstall a game, we wanted to be able for them to sync their progress, the number of coins they had, who they unlocked. And there was no library out there, especially in Swift, that did this. So I built one called Zephyr. And they got a little bit of press in a couple different places. What was interesting, though, is in the last couple of weeks, Peter Steinberger from PDF Kit messaged me saying, hey, they're going to use my Swift 3 branch in their new app called PDF Viewer. So I told him to mention it here because I thought it was really cool. It was a big win for me because this little idea that I had last November for a video, a little video game that ends up actually being useful for a guy making lots of money writing PDF software. So I'm happy about that. And so the future of the company is services. The Washington Post is a services company. We built our own publishing platform that we've been dogfooding for the last couple of years, and now we're selling it to smaller publishing platforms. And the smaller publishing platforms get their own WordPress style interface. They get to build entire web pages. They get to and they also get white labeled apps. We have a lot of clients. I can only mention these 4, but Infobay is a big Argentinian news app. Globe and Mail is a big Canadian publishing network, and then we have a few smaller ones, Willamette Week and Alaska Dispatch News. So we have a lot of this. This is where we're going. We're no longer a newspaper company. We're a services company that happens to write news. So if you haven't said hi to any of us, please do. The 3 of us are here. The 3 of us represent various aspects of the company. I'm full-time local. Eric is full-time remote here in Denver, and Joseph is one of our interns for last year. So come say hi to us. And thank you for coming to my talk.